You're in a conference room, looking at figures glowing on a screen, and your chest tightens before anyone speaks. You give the answer you reached after studying them. The table goes quiet. Then, one person answers differently, and another follows. Soon every voice points away from what you saw. Your voice loses force. The certainty you held a moment ago starts to feel embarrassing. This is confidence collapsing when everyone disagrees. You treat it as a personal weakness, an irrational social fear, a flaw made by modern group life. Your hand lowers from the table while the group continues speaking. That collapse is not random, and it is not modern. It comes from a survival shortcut shaped before conference rooms existed, under a pressure as old as human uncertainty. When direct knowledge was limited, repeated behavior from the majority could serve as useful information. No one person could inspect every danger, path, food source, and social demand alone. A visible pattern among nearby people offered a fast answer. The shortcut was simple. When many people moved in the same direction, their agreement carried weight. It did not guarantee that the group was right. It made action possible when certainty was out of reach. That difference matters now, because the same inherited shortcut carries a hidden price when a group is wrong. This response comes from deep in the human past, before the institutions, screens, and formal discussions that now surround it. It is not a private quirk contained inside one anxious person. It belongs to the shared equipment people bring into rooms together, even when they arrive with different evidence and different reasons. Your chest tightens as the voices gather against you. The shortcut reaches back before conference rooms existed, which means the pressure inside that small room did not begin there. Your lowered hand is responding to more than the figures on the screen. Now the response remains active in ordinary moments of public agreement. You stand in a classroom while a discussion turns toward one confident answer. A few students nod. Then, more do. The sound of agreement gathers speed before you have finished arranging your own thought. Your body registers the pattern. The group has become a signal in the room, immediate and visible. You feel the pull of it before anyone has settled the matter. The response does not wait for a wilderness or an emergency. It enters judgment while people speak, pause, nod, and look toward the same conclusion. That is why disagreement can feel heavier than the evidence in front of you. A repeated answer has a physical presence. It changes the air around the words. You can still remember the detail that led you elsewhere, yet the room gives its attention to something else. The feeling is not merely that you have been challenged. It is the sensation of standing apart while a shared direction forms beside you. Your certainty begins to lose its place before the discussion has reached an ending. The grounded fact is simple. Repeated behavior from the majority once served as useful information when direct knowledge was limited. To understand why that cue gained such authority, we have to return to the uncertain ground where it first became necessary. On uncertain ground, one person could not test every path before moving. A route could lead toward water, while another led into an immediate threat. Food that looked familiar could still demand knowledge gathered elsewhere. Nearby people had already made choices, and their repeated behavior was visible when direct evidence was thin. Ancient humans watched the direction of the group because a shared pattern could compress many separate encounters into one cue. When most people avoided a place, turned down a route, and followed a familiar practice, that pattern offered guidance without forcing each person to learn the danger firsthand. Majority copying reduced the burden of deciding alone. It moved hard-won knowledge through a group, from eyes that had seen something to eyes that had not. The price of a wrong move was not abstract. Taking an unsafe route could leave a person exposed when there was little time to test the choice. A person who accepted the visible pattern could act before certainty arrived. A person who treated every decision as private investigation had to carry the whole uncertain ground alone. The group supplied a direction before direct proof could. That old calculation is still present when you watch several faces turn toward the same answer. Your attention shifts before you have checked their reasons. Many sets of eyes facing the same uncertain ground can become a cue that one pair of eyes accepts. An alarm cuts through a large office building. You stand from your desk as people around you rise, look toward the marked exit, and begin moving in the same direction. You do not know which hallway is clear. You do not need to inspect every stairwell before acting. The visible flow gives you a fast direction. You follow it, reach the exit, and leave the building instead of standing still under a sounding alarm. In that moment, the old response fits the world exactly. Other people have information in their movement. Their shared action helps you act while your own knowledge is limited. The building contains signs, corridors, doors, and a crowd that has already begun to organize itself. Your body reads the crowd before it has time to build a private map of the place. That is not weakness. It is a practical response to incomplete information, and it can carry you towards safety when delay matters. Your feet move with the people around you before you have named every reason for following them. A visible flow can turn scattered knowledge into immediate action. Later, a meeting room is quiet around a screen. There is no alarm, no unsafe route, and no immediate threat. Yet everyone gives the same answer against yours, and their agreement begins to feel like evidence before you have examined it again. You notice a detail in the figures that points elsewhere. Your mouth opens, then you withhold the observation before saying it aloud. The detail remains in front of you, but the shared answer has made speaking feel like stepping away from the group. Then someone asks for your estimate. You remember the figure that led you to a different conclusion. Still, you revise your estimate toward the answer already moving around the table. Your spoken answer changes while the original figure remains unchanged on the screen. Your body has accepted agreement as a cue even though the room has supplied no new evidence. A useful signal can begin deciding which private observations remain in the room. At a hiring panel, a candidate's file lies open in front of you. You wrote down a strong result, a careful answer, and a detail that answers the concern on the table. Then the first confident voice calls the candidate unreliable. Another repeats the word. A third adds the same concern with nothing new behind it. You stop reading your notes. Your attention leaves the candidate's evidence and turns toward the faces around the table. You begin tracking approval instead of weighing what is written. The cost arrives quietly. Focus is taken from the record. Energy goes into monitoring whether your expression matches the group. The judgment you form from the file has less room to speak. Later, a public claim appears beneath a news clip. You read a detail that does not fit the claim. Below it, confident replies gather in one direction. Each reply repeats the same conclusion. Each receives agreement. And the visible pattern starts to feel heavier than the words you read yourself. You reread the detail, not because it changed, but because the group has made your reading feel exposed. Calm gives way to self-monitoring. You consider leaving no reply at all. The claim has not gained evidence. It has gained a chorus. Then the same pressure appears during a training session when everyone nods at an answer you know does not match the material on the page. You mark your own answer wrong before anyone asks you to defend it. A private judgment is not defeated by proof. It is crowded out by visible agreement. Your fingers pause above the keyboard while the replies keep accumulating. Repetition can make a claim look more solid without adding a single new reason. And modern life keeps placing that signal directly in front of you. At a town hall, the speaker makes a claim, and the room answers with nods, applause, and raised hands. You notice the missing detail immediately, yet the response around you reaches your judgment before you can test the claim from beginning to end. That is the mismatch left hanging in the quiet meeting room. The old queue does not wait for danger because it was built for uncertainty, not for danger alone. Visible agreement still enters as information when your own knowledge feels incomplete. Meetings, comment threads, classrooms, panels, and public debate place that queue in front of you again and again. The group can be mistaken, but its agreement still carries the force of a shortcut. You try to reason through it. You return to the notes. You repeat the detail to yourself. The room continues moving toward its answer, and your private conclusion begins to feel less like evidence than defiance. You try silence. You let the discussion pass and tell yourself the point does not matter. Then the shared answer becomes the basis for the next decision, and the detail you held never enters the record. You try to push through. Your voice starts, but every face turned toward one conclusion makes the correction feel socially costly before anyone has answered it. Modern incentives shape what people say, and group input can contain real knowledge. Yet visible consensus remains difficult to remove because it is built into ordinary judgment itself. Your pulse rises while hands lift around the town hall. Agreement reaches you before its reasons do. The repeated signal keeps arriving faster than private evaluation can settle, and its cost does not end when the room falls quiet. At a planning committee, a proposal is projected on a wall while the members around you settle on the same answer. You can see the error in the map. A boundary has been read incorrectly, and the conclusion built from it cannot hold. Still, one person states the mistaken answer with certainty. Heads turn. Pens move. The room begins to close around it. You check the map again. The boundary is still there. Your certainty drains anyway. You begin measuring your words against the mood of the table, calculating how much resistance your correction will create. The error has not become stronger on the wall. It has become stronger between people. This is the full cost. A useful inherited cue can suppress an accurate private judgment and replace it with an inaccurate shared judgment. You distrust evidence you directly noticed. You silence the correction before it can be tested. The group's error gains force because nobody interrupts it. The loss moves through several parts of the same moment. Focus leaves the evidence and fixes on approval. Calm is spent on watching faces and waiting for rejection. Your voice changes before your reasons do. Then the decision advances with a conclusion that has borrowed its authority from agreement. The shortcut does not create every group mistake. People can bring real knowledge into a room, and modern incentives can shape who speaks first, who repeats a claim, and who stays silent. Its inherited cost appears when uncertainty makes shared agreement feel safer than independent evaluation. Even when the evidence in front of you points elsewhere, you sit with the correction formed in your mind while the committee prepares to move on. Each unspoken correction leaves the shared error with one less obstacle. The decision proceeds under an answer no one